Hello, Africa and the rest of the world. Welcome to News Central Television Studios, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital. I'm Sulaiman Alede. The headlines for this hour. Parents of abducted university students in Nigeria's northwestern region of Kaduna call for their release. EU scraps plans to send observers to next month's parliamentary election in Ethiopia. W.H.O urges doctors in South Sudan to educate the public so they can make informed decisions on COVID-19 vaccines. Details of these and more when we return. Well, we begin in Nigeria, where parents of the kidnapped students from Nigeria's Federal University of Forestry Mechanization in the northwestern state of Kaduna occupied the nation's parliament today, demanding the release of their children. The parents say they fear the kidnappers will kill the students as they continue to insist on the payment of a ransom before their release. Our correspondent Amadi Uyi reports.
The protest commenced from the Unity Fountain in Abuja. Despite the presence of security personnel, the parents and several students from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization and officials of their students' union government marched on singing songs of solidarity. They displayed several placards expressing their demands. Some of the students revealed details of the unfortunate incidents.
They kidnapped at 9 students on 11 March 2021 and they released 10, 5 in batches. So now they are still, 29 students are still in captivity.
Very early in the morning, Friday morning, we got a call around 4 a.m. that he had been kidnapped, so that the kidnappers entered into the hostel, and their hostel was the first hostel to be attacked, and then it happened to be one. And then a few hours later, we saw a very big video showing him on the video, but it was not very clear. But the next video that came on the Saturday was him talking this time, and he talked and asked the government to help out. He asked to fight for him. I wouldn't lie to you. Since that day, it has been treated.
One of the parents says the kidnappers have continued to demand for ransom.
They are just demanding for money. They are just looking for money. And the money they are looking for, we don't have that money. That's why we are here. They are looking for over 50 million.
Other parents present made passionate and tear-filled pleas to government.
I trained it for 27 years old. Just like that, they work for bush on us 5 hours. Why? Make the whole government help us. Make una help us. It's 55 days today. Get it to 2 months on Thursday. Make una help us. This one is too much. It's too much.
A representative from the parliament who was on ground to receive them assured that the parliament will try its best to intervene on the matter.
We have listened to your grievances. I assure you that we empathize with you. All of us have children, and therefore we feel your pain. And I believe that all Nigerians of good morals must feel the pain of our children in captivity. And I assure you that they have listening ears. So together with the parliamentarians, I assure you they will give all the attention and care needed to this problem that's on our hands.
However, some of the protesters urged the federal government to do all it can to ensure the kidnapped students are returned back home safe and sound.
The children committed was to go to school and obey their parents to read. This is disheartening. Nigeria indeed has failed these children. They have failed. They should come up and do something. It's not something that's beyond their reach.
From Abuja, Amadin Uyi, News Central Television.
In the meantime, students at most schools resumed across the country today. In this report, Ijeoma Esekhalaye monitors the school resumption in the Center of Excellence, which is Lagos.
As most schools, including nursery, primary and secondary school institutions across the country, resume on Tuesday, some students are definitely not resuming academic activities.
In the Northwest, more than 55% of kids of school age in Bauchi are not in school. So where are they? It means they are either in the Malam Quranic Center, or they are within the community on the farm, or within the town, city towns. So for us to be able to get this 55%, at least a measure of access to basic education, we need to move the integration to those centers to be able to at least reduce the number of those we say out of school or that are not accessing basic education.
Since December 2020, more than 600 students have been abducted from schools in the northwest of Nigeria, highlighting a worrying development in the country's kidnap for ransom crisis. Authorities say recent attacks on schools in the north have been carried out by bandits and other armed militia. It will be recalled that some schools in Zamfara, Niger and others are among states educationally disadvantaged. After fears were heightened following these abductions, the economic city of Nigeria doesn't want to be caught napping.
Some schools in the north have been attacked, and we don't need to just sit back and be watching. So for us to make sure we have proper security for pupils, students, staffers, laborers, workers, and even the facilities in these schools, adequate deployment has been done. We have taken care of certain things, and of course, I'm not going to let loose most of those strategies on here, but we are very, very resolute in providing adequate security for these schools. We are mindful of the fact, though within the mega city, and some of them are almost at the outskirts of the state, have been taken care of.
Some of the notable abductions recorded in schools include the Chibok girls, schoolgirls from Dapchi, Kankara boys, amongst others. While schools in the southwest are resuming academic activities, some schools in Adamawa, Borno, Kano, Yobe, Niger and Zamfara states will remain shut, while dozens of schools already have been closed for years due to Boko Haram insurgency, thus creating a huge challenge for the government.
While staying in Nigeria, the Parliament has summoned the country's security chiefs and heads of security agencies to appear before Parliament on May 6. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, says the interaction with lawmakers will focus on ways of solving an escalating insecurity crisis in Nigeria. Lawan urged lawmakers to remain open-minded during the expected dialogue, especially if there is a need to provide more funds to tackle kidnapping, banditry and terrorism.
We have now fixed the date for our briefing to be Thursday, the 6th of this month, a day after tomorrow. I want to appeal to all of us that the briefing we will take from the service chiefs and other security agencies will be very crucial for us to be properly informed, properly guided, and that if there is any request for supplementary budget, we should be able to understand why we should consider and approve such requests. On Thursday, the only item on the order paper will be the briefing. We make that as a special day for the engagement, the interaction between the Senate and the service chiefs.
Nigeria's President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan. Now, the federal government of Nigeria has accused its main opposition, the People's Democratic Party, of presenting false facts to the public. Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed told journalists in the capital Abuja that the opposition is playing cheap politics with insecurity. Mohammed was reacting to recent claims by the PDP that the current government has shown it is incapable of tackling the country's security woes. The minister also debunked claims that no arrested terrorist has been tried and convicted in the past. He asked the PDP to collaborate with the government to solve the current security problems in the country and stop deceiving the public.
Gentlemen, we acknowledge the challenges we face as a nation, and we are doing everything possible to tackle them. We call on all Nigerians to support the efforts of the federal government to tackle these challenges. We advise those bent on playing cheap politics with the challenges to handle with faith. This is no time for politics. The PDP alleged that kidnappers and bandits are not being brought to justice. This is appropriately aimed at the federal government. It is shocking that the party that ruled this nation for all of 16 years does not know that kidnapping and banditry are not federal offences. The PDP should therefore call out the states, including those being controlled by it, to ensure a rigorous prosecution of arrested kidnappers and bandits. This federal government has successfully prosecuted thousands of Boko Haram members, engaging as part of a continuing exercise. We are now seeking the cooperation of the judiciary to continue with the trial of arrested terrorists.
Well, in South Africa, a top committee of the governing African National Congress has reaffirmed that members charged with corruption or other serious crimes must vacate their posts within 30 days or face suspension. The statement by the National Working Committee of the party said it had instructed that letters be written to affected members. The NWC said it will implement the decision and outline its terms and conditions. Now, staying in South Africa, the process is underway to lay Zulu Queen Regent Shihiwe Mathumbi Dlamini Zulu to rest. The late Queen was hospitalized in Johannesburg, and her remains will be returned to KwaZulu-Natal on Wednesday morning to allow for her interment. In terms of Zulu culture, she will be laid to rest in the evening in a service observed by only a few members of the royal family. This is similar to the method in which her late husband, King Goodwill Zwelithini, was laid to rest. Her remains will be transported to the Zulu Royal Homestead on Wednesday. An official provincial government service will be on Friday. Now, in Limpopo, a fire outbreak at F.H. Odendel Hospital has killed 2 patients. One of the dead was a prisoner who had been serving a life sentence and was being treated in the hospital. The fire reportedly started in a COVID-19 ward and spread to other parts of the building. Authorities are investigating the cause of the fire. In the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia has called on Sudan to desist from an unhelpful campaign when it comes to the latest negotiations around the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The call comes after Sudan's foreign ministry on Saturday criticized Ethiopia's objections to the continued application of treaties signed in the colonial era that govern how the waters of the Nile should be shared. The 2 countries, along with Egypt, are at loggerheads over the filling of the giant reservoir that will sit behind the dam in northern Ethiopia. Sudan and Egypt fear that it could restrict the water supply along the Nile, which is vital to both states. Now, the European Union has scrapped plans to send observers to a parliamentary election in Ethiopia next month, saying conditions had not been met on communication systems and the mission's independence. EU's top diplomat Joseph Borrell said in a statement that the 27-nation bloc would also not monitor preparations for the June 5 election, including voter registration. Borrell said it was disappointing that the EU had not received the assurances necessary to extend to the Ethiopian people one of its most visible signs of support for their quest for democracy. Ethiopia had been scheduled to hold an election in August 2020, but it was delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now to Uganda, where Parliament has passed a sweeping law on sexual offences, repealing some of the provisions in the decades-old criminal law. The new measures provide for the establishment of a national sexual offenders register. Anyone who is convicted of a sexual offence will have their name entered into that record within 10 days of the court ruling. They will be obliged to disclose this history if applying for a job or any position that puts children in their care. Catcalling, indecent public exposure, or demanding sexual favors in return for a job or academic progress has also been made illegal. In other news, Egypt will start receiving 30 Dassault warplanes from France from 2024 in a $4.8 billion deal expected to strengthen ties between both countries. France's Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly said the deal, confirmed on Tuesday, illustrated the strategic nature of the partnership between the countries and would secure 7,000 jobs in France over 3 years. She said the two countries are resolutely committed to the fight against terrorism and work for stability. The deal also covers contracts for missile provider MBDA and equipment provider Safran Electronics and defense worth another €200 million. When the news returns, the latest on the coronavirus across Africa as WHO calls for vaccine education for the people of South Sudan. Stay with us. World Health Organization is urging doctors in South Sudan to educate the public about the coronavirus vaccines so that they can make informed decisions on whether to get vaccinated. The call comes as a result of some vaccine hesitancy following the news that 60,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca jab donated by the African Union had expired on April 13 before they were used. So far, only 4,000 health workers and some elderly people have been vaccinated despite more doses being available. There is a fear that the 132,000 doses might not be used up before they expire on July 18. In the meantime, foreign students in India are anxious over the rise in cases of COVID-19 infections in the country. The fears come after latest figures on Tuesday showed that the number of new COVID-19 infections in the country surpassed 20 million cases. India says infections have consistently dropped since April 30, when it recorded more than 400,000 cases. But experts say the number of deaths and infections are being underreported. Earlier, we spoke to Daniel Ishaku, who is the president of the Federation of International Students Associations in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, in India.
The number of cases have constantly been on the rise, even though in the southern part of India, where I am right now, the severity of the case isn't as bad as it is in the northern part of India. So a lot of the cases and the news we hear are mostly from the northern part of India, even though there are serious cases and the number of cases are quite high as well here in the southern part of India and Tamil Nadu. One of the major factors that I have personally observed is the nature of living over here in India. There are a lot of practices that Indians engage in, especially those who are really traditional and religious activities that they take part of. And I believe that is the major cause for this huge rise in the number of cases. So a lot of festivals have taken place in India in the past couple of weeks. A lot of other religious events have taken place. Political rallies and all sorts are actually going on with no restrictions, without them following the guidelines or the the right spacing for all these activities and all these events. I believe that is the core reason why the number of cases are on the rise in India.
Daniel Ishaku, who spoke to us earlier, giving us a sense of what exactly is happening in India at the moment. Now, the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response has held a virtual meeting aimed at assessing the performance of several countries of the world concerning the fight against COVID-19. The panel, which is made up of certain presidents from African nations as well as prime ministers of other countries outside the continent, discussed the achievements reached and challenges faced by the countries while fighting the pandemic. News Central's Bernard Akede has more.
Owing to the surge in COVID-19 cases in India, Rwanda's national carrier has joined a growing list of African airlines that have suspended flights to India. The statement was released by the airline on its official Twitter handle, saying the suspension is till further notice. This comes as the Asian country's COVID-19 cases surpassed 20 million, which has led...
In May 2020, the World Health Assembly requested Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus to come up with an impartial, independent and comprehensive review of the international health response to COVID-19. Towards this end, a panel known as the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response was set up. The panel, which was put together by the former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and the former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Elizabeth Clark, comprises several leaders from Africa and other countries outside the continent. The panel converged virtually to discuss its findings.
What we concluded in brief from this work was that COVID-19 went from being a localized outbreak to a pandemic because of a whole range of failures and gaps in pandemic preparedness and response. The truth is most countries were not well prepared to respond, despite years of warnings of the need to do so.
The Ethiopian president commended the work done by the panel in such a short time, but pointed out that several things still need to be put in place to ensure adequate distribution of vaccines around the continent and the world.
We also need greater flexibility in trade regulations to boost vaccine manufacturing and production around the world. The report of the independent panel cannot come at the opportune time when there is a growing call for an international treaty on pandemics and a strengthened World Health Organization.
President Paul Kagame of Rwanda said despite the mobilization of world leaders, the rate at which COVID-19 spread was a major challenge.
The world did indeed mobilize in important ways to respond to COVID-19. Alongside protectionism, there were also examples of solidarity. But it was not enough given the speed and the severity of the disease.
Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa stated all initiatives put together by the 5 regions of Africa aimed at fighting the pandemic.
Countries of the continent developed and began implementing the Africa Joint Continental Strategy for COVID-19 outbreak. We also established the COVID-19 task forces in which and through which each of the continent's 5 regions to drive the implementation of the Continental Strategy.
After the African leaders had spoken, the Prime Ministers of New Zealand, Singapore, Sweden and Spain also recounted their achievements and gave suggestions on what could still be done to further fight the pandemic and equitably distribute vaccines.
Apologies for that earlier mix-up on Bernard Akere's report there. Now, still ahead on the news, Japanese journalist has been charged with spreading fake news in Myanmar. Details of these and more after now. Journalist. Welcome back. Now, a Japanese journalist arrested in Myanmar has been charged with spreading fake news. Yuki Kitazumi is the first foreign journalist known to be charged since the coup. Mr. Kitazumi, who was working as a freelance journalist, had been reporting for many of Japan's major news outlets, appearing as a rare foreign reporter from within Myanmar. The 45-year-old was arrested in April and has been in prison since. The Japanese embassy in Myanmar said he showed no health problems, but added that they were urging the military to release him. If found guilty, he faces up to 3 years in prison. Now, the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, on Tuesday warned of mounting refugee and migrant death in the central Mediterranean, with a 170% increase in sea arrivals in Italy in 2021 compared to the same period in 2020. UNHCR spokesperson for Italy, Carlotta Sami, told reporters in Geneva that over 450 persons, among them 190 minors, are disembarking following rescue in 6 different operations by the NGO vessel Sea-Watch. UNHCR said there was a great number of children among the migrants. Many of them are unaccompanied.
The death toll. Since the very early hours of Saturday, 1st of May, some 1,500 persons have disembarked in Italy following rescue by the Italian Coast Guard and Custom Police or by international NGOs in the central Mediterranean. Solidarity from the other EU members is urgently needed. Also, UNHCR is deeply concerned about the death toll. So far in 2021, at least 500 persons are known to have lost their life trying to make the sea crossing in the Central Med. In 2020, there were 150 in this period of the year. So we have an increase of 200%. Of course, the tragic loss of life underscores once again the need to reestablish a system coordinated by states for search and rescue operation in the central Mediterranean.
An overpass carrying a subway train has collapsed in Mexico City late Monday, killing 23 people and injuring at least 70. The subway was traveling on an elevated and outdoor portion of the city's rapid transit system on the Newest Line 12, also known as the Golden Line, when the portion of the overpass collapsed. Mexico City's Mayor, Claudia Sheinbaum, at the scene said a car remained trapped under the rubble of the overpass, but rescue efforts were temporarily suspended as the subway was still dangling and unstable. The mayor says emergency service crews were waiting for a crane to arrive before they could continue rescue efforts. Well, in business, the Central Bank of Zimbabwe has said on Tuesday that its Monetary Policy Committee decided to keep its policy rate at 40%. In a tweet, the regulator said its MPC reaffirmed its strong commitment to continue with the conservative monetary policy stance. Tululokwe Adelero Balogun has the rest of the business news.
Thank you so much, Suleiman, and welcome to Business on NC Continental Prime. I'm Tululokwe Adelero Balogun. We start in southern Africa, where Zimbabwe's Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube says diaspora remittances have now overtaken foreign aid in the amount of money being contributed to the country's economy. He said remittances surpassed the previous year's amount of $635.7 million. The minister added the increase in remittances was possibly due to the use of formal channels that remained operational during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe had projected diaspora remittances to be $940 million last year. However, Zimbabweans in the diaspora sent home a total of $1 billion in 2020, making it the highest ever contribution made to the local economy. In East Africa, Kenya and Tanzania have signed a deal to construct a gas pipeline between the port cities of Mombasa in Kenya and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Presidents Uhuru Kenyatta and Samia Suluhu Hassan announced the pipeline talks at the State House in Nairobi. The talks were aimed at improving relations between the neighbors. The two heads of state also revealed that they discussed the removal of unfair trade tariffs in order to boost cross-border trade, as well as strengthening road, rail, air, and sea transport. Security has become a major problem in Nigeria, and it has affected the ability of the country to feed her citizens. With the uncertainty facing the Nigerian economy, the commodities market has become volatile in the wake of the realities of the Nigerian economy. News Central's W.H.O tells us more in this report.
Nigeria faces a plethora of security challenges ranging from violent extremism, a farmer-header conflict, banditry, a revived secessionist movement, kidnap for ransom, police repression, and attacks on public infrastructure, among others. In the wake of these security challenges, Nigeria's inflation rate now stands at 18.17% from 17.33%. The Consumer Price Index report released by the National Bureau of Statistics interprets this as a 0.82% increase. When the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, addressed the inaugural meeting of the Steering Committee on the repositioning of the Nigeria Commodity Exchange, NCX, he made it clear that the Apex Bank had gotten the presidential nod to restructure the NCX in a bid to stabilize food prices in the country. Nigeria, no doubt, needs a viable commodity market if it must expand its sources of foreign exchange and revenue earnings in the wake of the incessant external shocks from the international oil market. The government's huge investment in agriculture may further enhance the commodity market, but faced with the challenge of insecurity, what is the fate of the Nigerian commodity market? I spoke with Gbolahan Olojede, a business analyst and the executive director for DMA Advisory Management Services Limited, on shielding the Nigeria Commodity Exchange from the heat of Nigeria's insecurity.
Number one, as much as possible, let's try to fix the insecurity problem. Number two, there has to be some intervening structures that will ensure that farmers can get a minimum return on their investment.
The Nigeria Commodities Exchange and other business sectors will need an immediate address of insecurity problems in Nigeria in order to curb Nigeria's food inflation rate. It will also reposition the commodity platform to be more responsive to the challenges in producing and marketing food and agricultural produce in the country. W.H.O, News Central TV.
As India battles a second wave of the coronavirus, other countries have banned flights to and from the country. Here in Africa, Rwanda is the latest to join the flight restriction list. Here are the details.
Owing to the surge in COVID-19 cases in India, Rwanda's national carrier has joined a growing list of African airlines and have suspended flights to India. The statement was released by the airline on its official Twitter handle, saying the suspension is till further notice. This comes as the Asian country's COVID-19 cases surpassed 20 million, which has left the country's healthcare system at breaking point, with hospitals running out of oxygen and nearly all hospital beds occupied. News Central TV spoke with an aviation consultant to know if this will affect bilateral relations between India and Rwanda.
Every country understands at this moment that once flight has suspended, once there's a high incidence of COVID victims in the young country, infection, not victims, I beg your pardon. Flights and entry are part of the protocols are stopped and blocked, whichever word we want to use there. So Rwanda is not the only country, even Nigeria. As of today, from today, you go Indian visitors, and if you're a Nigerian resident, you have to go through stringent COVID protocols. One of these is that they've reduced the PCR test there from 96 to 72 hours for those coming from there, and you would have to stay. So you have to do 24 hours another COVID test on arrival in Nigeria, and you're going to quarantine for another 7 days. So every country has introduced a form of protocol to prevent the third wave, which especially the variants coming in from India now that have become so deadly.
Daily inoculations have averaged 2.5 million since hitting a peak of 4.5 million on April 5. The World Health Organization has also raised concerns about the infection cases in India. The flight ban is, however, temporary, as Sema Malhotra, an official at the Indian High Commission in Rwanda, has advised Rwandans that a trip can be taken to the country after 1 or 2 months when it is anticipated that the infection cases would have declined.
And we wrap up business back in the southern parts of the continent. The next phase of telecommunications technology has started on the continent. Vodacom has announced that it launched 5G technology in 3 cities across South Africa, namely Pretoria, Cape Town, and Johannesburg. The Spectrum is Africa's first live 5G network, which supports both mobile and fixed wireless services and is currently available on 20 live 5G sites. Vodacom says that the 5G rollout came after receiving a temporary spectrum from the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa. The spectrum includes a 1 by 50 megahertz in the 3.5 gigahertz band used to fast-track the 5G launch. Vodacom expects a 40% surge in mobile network traffic and a 250% increase in fixed traffic following deployment of 5G. 5G is the 5th generation technology standard for broadband cellular networks, which cell phone companies began deploying worldwide in 2019. It is the planned successor to the 4G networks, which provide connectivity to most current cell phones. And that's business right here on NC Continental Prime. My name is Solulokwe Adeleru Balogun. It's back to Suleiman.
Well, many thanks to Lulokwe. Now, in sports tonight, Onyeo takes us through the latest from the Indian Premier League as the country tries to curb rising cases of COVID-19. And, Jose Mourinho seems to be the manager with 9 lives. I understand he's found a new home in the Serie A.
Yes, of course. And the man says he can't wait to return to football. He's now the manager of Roma. But before we take you through that, thank you so much, Suleiman. And in the world of sport right now, we begin with cricket, where Indian Premier League has been suspended after an increase in coronavirus cases among players. The IPL said it had unanimously decided to postpone the season after an emergency meeting, adding that the Board of Control of Cricket in India does not want to compromise the safety of players, support staff and other participants. Monday's match between Kolkata Knight Riders and the Royal Challengers Bangalore was postponed with 2 KKR players tested positive. And earlier today, the Sunrisers Hyderabad players tested positive before their match against Mumbai Indians. The country has recorded more than 200 million cases and so far reported more than 222 deaths from the virus. Now, a Milimani magistrate has directed former rugby player Alex Olaba to wait until next Monday to know whether he will be released on bond in his rape trial. Chief Magistrate Francis Adias said he and other magistrate who is handling his gang rape case might come to different rulings, which might lead to a double jeopardy. The magistrate said his ruling will abide by the decision by Ms. Abdul will make next week after the prosecution applied for the cancellation of Olaba's bail. The former Kenyan Sevens rugby player denied 2 counts of conspiracy to murder and conspiracy to defeat justice after he allegedly threatened to kill a key witness in his gang rape case. Now, still in rugby, the Nigerian Federation has suspended indefinitely from global activities. This was announced by Rugby Africa as contained in the indefinite suspension letter sent to the Minister of Youth and Sports in Nigeria, Sunday Dare. The Continental governing body frowned at the arbitrary dissolution of the board of the Nigerian Rugby Board and the subsequent replacement with a 3-man caretaker committee. Rugby Africa warned that Nigeria stands ineligible to take part in any of its global activities except the right steps are taken in line with the approved constitution of the Rugby Board. Now, World Football Governing Body FIFA has relegated Football Kenyan Federation Premier League side Zoo FC to the National Super League after it found the Carrico-based club culpable of match fixing. In a letter signed by the Alejandro Pierre, the FIFA Disciplinary Committee chairman, the club Zoo FC was found responsible for activities relegated to manipulation of football matches and competitions. As a result of the decision, the Kenyan Federation Premier League has written to the Kericho-based club informing them of the decision to relegate them to the second-tier league. A ban on several stadia across the continent looks set to hit the opening rounds of the Africa's World Cup qualifier in June. A total of 10 nations of the 40 taking part in the qualifying campaign face the prospect of hosting matches next month outside their borders. This comes after the Confederation of African Football sent out a circular to member associations this week that included a list of approved stadia for the first 2 rounds of the group matches. Affected countries include Senegal, Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, Liberia, Malawi, Mali, Namibia, Niger, and Sierra Leone. They now face a tight deadline to upgrade venues before the first set of matches begin on the 5th of June, or they will have to host them elsewhere. KV Ostende striker Fashion Sakala has agreed a 4-year deal with Scottish champions Rangers. The 24-year-old Zambian international moved to the Ibrox this summer, subject to a work permit and international clearance been received. Sakala has scored 13 times in 29 games for the Ostende in the Belgian top flight this season. He described Rangers as one of the greatest clubs in the world. Sakala has 11 caps for Zambia, having made his debut in September 2017.
I think it has been one of my dreams, and I feel like this is a dream come true to join Rangers, one of the greatest club in the world. And with a great history, a great fan base, I think I believe we will share great memories together. These are opportunities that comes once in life, so it's like a dream come true also for me. I think looking at my background is something that I can't believe that I'm going to work in Stranger, right? But I'm looking forward to start working with him and 100% willing to learn from him and bring a lot what he wants in the game.
Still in the world of sport, UEFA Executive Committee has approved having expanded squad for the Euro 2020, increasing the maximum number of players to 23 from 26, of course. The decision was taken to avoid the possibility of squads lacking numbers due to possible COVID-19 cases and mandatory quarantines that will follow. The maximum number of players a nation can name in the team, the sheet for each game remains 23, of which 3 must be goalkeepers. Under the new rules, players who test positive for COVID-19 or who are close to contacts can be replaced before the first game of the tournament. And in the cherry news to wrap up sports right now, Jose Mourinho has been appointed the manager of Roma for the start of the 2021-2022 season. The 58-year-old will replace fellow Portuguese Paulo Fonseca, who Roma announced earlier on Tuesday would have to leave at the end of the current season. Mourinho was sacked as Tottenham Hotspur boss on the 19th of April and said he would wait to be back to football following his dismissal. He has signed a 3-year deal with Roma, who was 7th on the Serie A table. This season, Mourinho suffered 10 league defeats in a single campaign for the first time in his managerial career. And that was it on sport at this time. I am W.H.O Obaro. Now, of course, looking at that, you did introduce Roma, the announcement of Jose Mourinho at this time. But I'm sure you're very happy at this announcement, having to pick up a club, even after his dismissal at Tottenham Hotspur, Sulaiman.
Well, I'm excited for him, always coming back. I think that's a lesson for anyone to push and keep pushing and always be on top of your art.
Good one. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Onyinye. Now, music. I don't know what genre of music you love, rock, blues, R&B, or African pop, or Afrofusion. But there's something about music because it is an important aspect of our life. It is a way of expressing our feelings as well as our emotions. Even if you can't dance, you still can bop your head. So, as Africans, music has led freedom movements, being a source of hope in trying times and taught the next generation our vibrant culture. Now, from the entertainment desk, here are top 5 songs celebrating African love, strength, and of course, hope.
Music is more than sounds, notes, and instruments. Music influences emotions. It can aid communication, and it is a voice that can impact generations. So whatever the negativity around you, remember, music is alive. From us at the entertainment desk, here are our top 5 songs celebrating African love, strength, and hope. In 2007, T.Y. Bello blessed us with Greenland, a pop-influenced tune that celebrates Nigeria as a place of abundance.
The land is green, it's green, oh, oh.
The evergreen song, unveiled to usher in a new governing administration in Nigeria, is still relevant over these many years, instilling hope and faith to the West African nation.
And it's all mine.
In 2010, the African continent hosted the FIFA World Cup, the most prestigious soccer competition in the world. The song Waka Waka, This Time for Africa, featuring South Africa's freshly bound band, was announced the official song of that year's World Cup. Waka Waka is the Cameroonian slang for do it.
This time for Africa.
Another special feature that year at the World Cup was Waving Flag by Somali-Canadian artist Kanan. Originally written for Somalia and aspirations of its people for freedom, the song became a promotional anthem at the World Cup, hosted by South Africa. Nigerian-American singer Abdul Rashid Bello, popularly called JJC, in 2009 created a music piece that echoed with a sense of pride the phrase, "We are Africans." With that title and the lyrics within, the song embodies the significance of our black skin and our roots. Composed by Enoch Sontonga in 1897, Nkosi Sikile, Africa, became a Pan-African liberation anthem and was later adopted as the national anthem of 5 countries. It was also popular in Tanzania, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and became their United Nations anthem. It remains the anthem in Tanzania and Zambia and was originally written in Ngosa language. While some of these songs are patriotic and others fun, African music continues to inspire black people all across the globe, telling our story, inspiring the next generation, and giving a voice to those who seek freedom.
Well, many thanks to the team there. Now, let's look at how the weather is like. 1.09 billion vulnerable people at the moment are at high risk because they face a range of cooling access challenges. In the meantime, another 2.3 billion from the lower middle income group face a different risk, inefficient cooling and refrigeration options that increase harmful GHG levels. Now, across 54 high-impact countries, 3.4 billion people face cooling access risk in 2021. Now, for the temperature readings and other weather conditions to expect across Africa tomorrow, we defer to our Met desk. That's all on the news at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Parents of abducted university students in Nigeria's northwestern state of Kaduna have called for their release. EU scraps plans to send observers to next month's parliamentary election in Ethiopia. WHO has urged doctors in South Sudan to educate the public so they can make informed decisions on COVID-19 vaccines. Now follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also catch up with our news and programs. Just download the News Central TV mobile app on Play Store and iOS. Well, you can also watch us live in Start Times, channel 274. I'm Sulaiman Aled, and many thanks for watching.